All right, let's dive into a classic story of command, crisis, and what happens when an entire starship crew completely loses control. We're talking about a mysterious contagion, a ship spiraling towards destruction, and a last-ditch solution with a twist so wild it literally changes history.
So, our story kicks off with this really ominous log entry. The USS Enterprise shows up at this dying planet, Sigh 2000, for what's supposed to be a simple pickup mission. But when they try to contact the research outpost on the surface, there's just silence. And what they find down there is a scene of pure, inexplicable tragedy.
To figure out what's going on, they send down an away team, led by the one and only Mr. Spock. You know, the guy you send when things stop making any logical sense. But what they find defies all logic. The scientists are all dead, sure, but not from any weapon or disease or environmental failure they can detect. The truth is just weird.
I mean, just look at this stuff. They find a man frozen solid, fully clothed, standing in a running shower. An engineer is sitting at his console, totally calm, except for the fact that he'd manually shut down his own life support system. The whole scene just screams that a sudden, terrifying wave of madness swept through this place.
So that's the billion-dollar question, right? What happened? They run every scan imaginable for viruses, radiation, toxins, anything, and they come up with absolutely nothing. It's as if the scientists just decided to go crazy all at the same time. The Enterprise is left with a deeply disturbing puzzle on a ghost planet.
And here's where it gets really bad. The mystery of Sigh 2000 doesn't stay on Sigh 2000. All it takes is a single, accidental touch from a crewman named Joe Tormolen, and this thing is now on board the Enterprise. And that's when the disciplined starship crew starts to unravel.
And this thing spreads like wildfire. It starts with Tormolen becoming paranoid and agitated. But then it jumps to helmsman Sulu, who suddenly abandons the helm, grabs a fencing foil, and starts running around the ship like a swashbuckler. And then there's navigator Kevin Riley, who decides he's Irish royalty and starts serenading the entire ship over the intercom.
So you see, it's not just random insanity. This affliction is like a key that unlocks the deepest, most hidden parts of a person's psyche. It just obliterates their inhibitions. A disciplined officer becomes a dueling hero. A junior navigator becomes a king. And a professional nurse, Christine Chappell, openly confesses her hidden love for the most stoic, emotionless man on the ship, Mr. Spock.
And you get this iconic moment. Sulu, shirtless, on the bridge, challenging anyone and everyone. It's the point where the crew realizes this isn't just a disease they're fighting. They are fighting the raw, unfiltered desires of their own friends.
Okay, so individual crew members acting strangely is one thing. But this is where the whole situation escalates from a medical emergency to a full-blown crisis that threatens the entire ship. Why? Because the infection has found its way to the heart of the vessel, the engine room.
Yep, our singing navigator Kevin Riley has barricaded himself in engineering. He's locked out Scotty, the actual chief engineer, and is now broadcasting his own bizarre commands to the ship, including demanding more ice cream. He's cut off the bridge, cut off power. In his mind, he's the captain now.
And this couldn't happen at a worse time. The Enterprise is caught in the planet's gravitational pull. Without engines, they're in a decaying orbit, getting pulled closer and closer to burning up in the atmosphere.
The clock is ticking, loudly. They have 19 minutes. 19 minutes until the ship hits the atmosphere and gets torn to pieces. The hull is already starting to glow from the friction. The pressure is on.
So now we've got this desperate two-front war going on. You have Scotty and his team literally trying to cut their way back into their own engine room, while at the exact same time Dr. McCoy is racing to find a cure for this madness.
And then, finally, a breakthrough. McCoy finds the culprit, and it's something no one expected. It's the water. On Sigh 2000, the water's molecular structure is just different. It spreads through sweat, and when it gets in your blood, it acts like a super potent form of alcohol, completely wiping out your brain's centers for judgment and self-control.
But just as they find the cause, the infection finds its most fascinating victim, Mr. Spock. For a Vulcan who has spent his entire life learning to suppress his human emotions, this is pure torture. He's fighting a losing battle against a lifetime of buried feelings that are now bursting to the surface.
They finally manage to break into engineering, but they're hit with another impossible problem. Riley didn't just lock the door, he performed a complete cold shutdown of the engines. And a cold restart takes 30 minutes.
They have only a few minutes left.
So with no other options on the table, Captain Kirk decides to take a huge gamble. He's going to try a radical, completely theoretical maneuver, one that could either save them or blow the ship to bits.
The plan is basically a controlled implosion, a forced cold restart by mixing matter and antimatter. It's never been done because if you get the formula wrong by even the slightest margin, the Enterprise will just cease to exist.
And then, in this amazing moment of desperate genius, the emotionally compromised Spock provides the key. His Vulcan logic, now supercharged with raw human emotion, allows him to see a connection no one else could, a theoretical link between antimatter and time itself, and he dictates the formula.
They punch it in. The engines don't just restart, they roar to life with a power they've never seen before, physically throwing the Enterprise away from the planet and back into the safety of deep space, literally seconds away from being destroyed.
The crew breathes a huge sigh of relief. They're safe. But then, they notice something is very, very wrong. The instruments on the bridge are acting strangely, and then comes the impossible report from the helm.
And the result is just mind-bending. Spock's formula, the one that tied antimatter to time, did more than just restart the engines. It threw the entire starship 71 hours into the past.
So, in saving the ship, they accidentally stumbled onto one of the universe's greatest secrets: time travel. They've traded one impossible crisis for a brand new, unbelievable reality. And that leaves us with one heck of a question to think about. What would you do if you got to live the last 3 days of your life all over again?